Welcome to the people who are jumping on to the recording. I am so glad to have you here. We are talking about magnesium, calcium, and my favorite blood test. I want to hop out of the gates with my favorite blood test, C-reactive protein. Why is that one of my favorite blood tests? Let me tell you why. C-reactive protein is an inflammation marker blood test. And it's a slow moving test. When you have that blood test done, let's say you had it done and then you did things to reduce your inflammation really intense for 4 weeks, and then you went and retested. It wouldn't show up on your C-reactive protein yet. It's what I call a slow moving test. And so once a year, I have my C-reactive protein taken for comparison. I want to know, am I staying the same in my inflammation levels? Am I going up in my inflammation levels, or am I going down in my inflammation levels? Because it's harder to heal when inflammation is high. And I'm throwing comments on. It's harder to heal when your inflammation levels are high because your spark plug, magnesium, which is the first gate we need to open to activate our vitamin D, when we soak in magnesium and you have high inflammation, you're not getting as much benefit as you can. You still get benefit because magnesium has been shown to help bring inflammation down. But if you've got inflammation coming in from lots of different places, you'll need the ability to do some other things to get that full benefit of the magnesium. So my C-reactive protein is a test I take every year. And a couple times I've gone up and it's shown me what I'm doing is not enough, or it's not the right package of things to bring my inflammation down. That's why I have fallen in love after my own blood work and watching lots of other women's blood work with the trifecta: soaking in magnesium, early morning sunshine, and walking if possible. 30 to 60 minutes is ideal. Some days I only have 15 and I celebrate imperfect action because it always creates better health. And sometimes I can get caught up in perfectionism. Oh, I don't have an hour. I can't walk. That's a lie. 15 minutes is great. 30 minutes is better. 60 minutes is optimal, but I don't always have 60 minutes that I choose to put on walking because of other areas in my life. And so any walking is a good thing. But when you combine soaking in magnesium, early morning sunshine, and walking, it is a beautiful trifecta to bring inflammation levels down. And then when you're soaking in magnesium, you're getting more benefit. That's why June, July, and August are my very favorite times to soak in magnesium, because typically we're outside more. And when we are outside more, our inflammation naturally drops, allowing the magnesium to work more effectively in your body. Let's talk though. So I talked about the blood work test. I'd love to know, for anybody who's on right now, have you ever had your C-reactive protein done? Is that something that you test once a year? I keep all of my own blood work in a file at home so that I can learn how to read that blood work, and I can learn how to see the patterns in my blood work that maybe my doctor isn't looking for. They're looking at my C-reactive that year. They're not looking at the 20 plus years of C-reactive I have on myself, and I can graph it and see, is my inflammation up? Is my inflammation down? It's something that I can do for myself by taking more accountability and more responsibility for my inflammation levels. Now, talking calcium. When we're talking calcium, the standard across the board currently is 2 parts calcium to 1 part magnesium. That's the recommended daily allowance. There was a study done, National Institute of Health, and it showed that when people got in through food and supplementation of calcium and magnesium and food. And they maintained the recommended daily allowance, that their calcium, when at 2 parts calcium to 1 part magnesium, that their inflammation markers went up. It's never been a good fit for me to have 2 parts calcium, 1 part magnesium. Now, when we're low in magnesium, your blood starts producing more calcium, pushing the calcium levels up in your body. And then that calcium doesn't have enough magnesium to push it in to your bones. And so it starts sitting in your joints, calcifying your arteries, and that causes health problems. Only you can determine. Maybe 2 parts calcium to 1 part magnesium is a great fit for you. It is not for me. And more studies are backing up that recommended daily allowance of 2 parts calcium to 1 part magnesium does indeed raise inflammation markers. You need to determine for yourself if you want more magnesium to less calcium. Many DOs, medical doctors, naturopaths, chiropractors, they will say actually 3 parts magnesium to 1 part calcium, and that helps create a balance that your calcium is going into your bones to strengthen them and not being a source of increasing your calcium levels and causing higher inflammation levels. Soaking in magnesium for me. Oh, remember, I am not a doctor. I am not prescribing. I am not telling you what to do. I'm just sharing what's worked for me for you to make the best decision for you. Think of it like you and I are at lunch right now, and we're playing a little bit of pretend. And we're just talking about what's working for each of us. I'd love to know if you've ever had your C-reactive blood work taken, and if you know what your ratio of calcium to magnesium is. Staying at cell saturation 6.3 or above has been the best way for me to offset high calcium levels. When my calcium levels are lower, my arthritis is better, my inflammation markers are lower, and I feel better across the board. When my osteoporosis was diagnosed and bone density scans started being done, for myself, I've also been able to show that my bone density gets better when I have higher levels of magnesium and lower levels of calcium. Personally, I made the decision to drop synthetic calcium all the way. I can get enough calcium from my food when my magnesium levels are high enough to utilize that calcium. Now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, that may not be the norm of what happens. But currently, what's happening and what I see happening across the board is when those magnesium levels start to get higher, and did you know, oh my gosh, let's talk about this. Calcium, when you have high levels of calcium, the recommended daily allowance, 2.1, your cardiovascular risk goes up, your metabolic X syndrome goes up, meaning that you're not utilizing glucose and hormones properly. Let's see what else goes up. Arteries, arterial sclerosis goes up because your arteries start to calcify with that higher level of calcium. And so I needed to take that responsibility back and determine what works for me. This 2.1 that's showing up really great in my blood work has me with high inflammation and high levels of arthritic pain. Reducing that calcium, because when you're low in magnesium, your cells put out more calcium, and you need that magnesium to offset that. So you could be low in magnesium taking a synthetic calcium and your body's creating a lot of calcium. And so you're creating a calcium dominant body. Once that's been happening long enough, you actually calcify your pineal gland. And once there's calcification on the pineal gland is like the sunshine gland. It spreads sunshine and health all throughout your body and is a hormone center, which means unbalanced hormones might not have anything to do with the amount of hormones you have, but that your pineal can't process because you're too high in calcium. Magnesium, the first gateway of health. Let's get our magnesium levels up. We've talked a little bit. I've got 3 minutes left. Let's finish with this. If you've got questions, let me know. I've got 3 minutes and 30 seconds left. When you're taking your magnesium red blood cell, now that's not the serum magnesium, but testing the magnesium in your cells. The new standard is 5. I still go by the old standard 6.3. Just because people were not hitting the old standard doesn't mean I'm willing to drop my standard of health to match people who don't feel well. I want optimal health to do big things and connect with people and love on people and do all the things that I want to do. How much calcium do we need on a daily basis? I cannot determine that for you. And this is where if you're wanting to think a little bit outside of the box and not stick with that standard 2 parts calcium to 1 part magnesium, because strong bones are very important. You need to start determining how much calcium am I getting from my food? How much calcium is showing up on my blood test? Where do I want to go from there? Where is my magnesium red blood cell? And I think this is where it can get a little overwhelming, in that if you're tired, if you're overwhelmed and you don't feel well, and that's what happens when you have too much calcium, and then you've got to figure out this stuff. But looking at your C-reactive protein, and remember, on your C-reactive protein test, each lab has a different value for what falls within the standard. So I want to know, where do I fall? But I also want to know, every year, am I going up? Am I staying the same? Or am I going back down? You're at work, but we'll watch later. That's great, Joe. Nice to see you. And so making sure that you're just learning those things and determining, do I want that 2 to 1 that studies are now showing increase inflammation levels? One action step you can take away from this is do the 30-day challenge, soaking in magnesium in one of the summer months. Determine, am I doing it in June? Am I doing it in July? Am I doing it in August? Because this is the best time to raise your magnesium levels to help balance calcium and push it in your bones where it can do your body what it's supposed to do. I'd love to know, what is your action item that you're taking away from today? C-reactive protein, are you going to start having that tested? Let's see, quick question here. 3-month challenge. Let me course correct on that. So it's not a 3-month challenge. It's still a 30-day transdermal magnesium soaking with Living the Good Life magnesium. 30-day challenge. Just determine, are you doing it in June? Are you doing it in July? Are you doing it in August? Here's how I do it and what works for me. In June, I start increasing how much I soak, a little bit. In July, I increase it a little bit more, maybe 1 to 2 extra times per week. And then in August, I hit it hard, 30 days because I want my magnesium levels up. I want my active vitamin D up because they naturally drop in the wintertime. But if you go into the wintertime low, then that's where we get sick. Our immune system gets hit hard. We don't feel well. Seasonal depression can kick in. Immune responses can kick in, all of those things. So I start ramping up just a little bit in June. I ramp up a little bit more in July. And then in August, I do the full 30-day challenge. Now, you don't have to do it that way. You do what works for you. And you can soak a little bit like I do in June and July, and then kick it in August. Or maybe August isn't the best month for you, and you determine to do your 30-day challenge in July, and then keep your soaking a little bit higher than normal in August. The last 20 years, as I've tracked mine and I have a record of what's worked for me, that's how I know what works best for me. And you can follow that same pathway if you think that sounds like a good fit for you, or you can make that work for your lifestyle, the stage of life you're in, your vacation schedule, people visiting. The important thing is make a decision and make your decision strongly, because that helps you hold on to magnesium. And when you hold on to your magnesium, all the healthy things in your body get started. See you guys.